um, that Trish lives in Nairobi, Kenya. She's equally passionate both about working with the youth of her country and also the wild animals. Um, in 2015, she founded her organization called Mimi Need Change, and their aim is to inspire and unite Kenyan youth and young adults. It's a very tribal world there. She has educated me about that. And so one of the big things is to get young people to come together, regardless of which tribe they're in, or class, or educated, not educated, gender, et cetera, to shun tribalism and to connect with each other as human beings and to support each other in taking charge of their own lives and what's possible for them, even in very challenging situations. And then Trisha's daytime job is she works to save animals with a global nonprofit called Wildlife Direct, and they're focused on justice for wildlife. And they run legal, community, education, outreach projects. They do a TV program, and they aim to protect animals by changing humans, to changing people's hearts and minds, and also to advocate for the change of laws so that animals can be legally protected. And they hold, excuse me, and they have a unique role in Kenya's wildlife conservation efforts for their work with animals, that they have been successful in, with elephants, that they've been successful in engaging people in Kenya to support their elephants. Trish holds an MA in International Studies and a BA in Communication and Sociology from the University of Nairobi. Okay, that's all I'm going to say. So the rest is up to you, Trish. Can you tell us a little bit about each, about what's happening now with Mimi Need Change, and then what's happening with Wildlife Direct, and what you're personally engaged in doing these days?
Oh, thank you, Arya. This is amazing. First of all, let me just say I am honored, and it's a privilege to be able to speak with all of you, and I am happy to be part of the All Circle, and I have to thank Bonita for introducing me to this amazing group of people who are also making a difference in the world in your own rights. So it is a privilege to be here. And I believe that Arya has already spoken about the two initiatives that I'm involved with. They are quite diverse and different. I work with young people, and I also work in wildlife conservation. I'd probably start with my background is in communication. And so from a young age, I always knew that I wanted to do something that would be able to be a voice or reach out to other people, create awareness, share information that would empower people to make informed choices in their lives. So from a young age, I knew that I wanted to be in the communications world. I am the firstborn in a family of three. So I see myself as a leader because I started leading my siblings at a very young age. So I also see myself as a leader, and I describe myself as a young leader who's passionate about empowering young people. I see every day, every space, every opportunity as a classroom where we can all learn. And anytime I get an opportunity to speak with any young person, I am always seeing it as an opportunity to share and learn from each other, but also to leave the person more empowered and have an open mind of possibilities that they would never have otherwise believed would happen in their lives. So personally, every day what I engage in, I work as a communications manager. And this is with Wildlife Direct. As Arya has put it, it's a wildlife conservation organization that is focused on justice for wildlife. So at Wildlife Direct, as I am speaking, I I have to say that my boss is currently in New York at the Tribeca Film Festival, and she is featured in a film called The Last Animals. And so this is a documentary talking about the importance of saving wildlife, and it's premiering right now. So she's one passionate leader and a woman in a I would say in an area where it's more male dominated. There are more men in the industry we are in terms of conservation, especially here in Kenya and in Africa, than you'd find women leaders. So she's one amazing woman that I learned from, and I am fortunate to have met her. And I did meet her while I was pursuing my own passion about Mimini Change. And so the way I met her, we were doing a course on being a leader, which was being organized here in Kenya. And in my capacity as the founder of Mimini Change, we had united with 4 women. One of them was my mother, and other 3 women had already done the Being a Leader course in Dubai. And so we felt that it would be a good opportunity for us to bring this leadership program in Kenya. And so we worked with fellow women from San Francisco. Bonita knows them, and she was also part of the Being a Leader program that we did. I actually did it in San Francisco thanks to Bonita. So the network of how we are all connected is very interesting. And so when I came back, we had the opportunity of organizing the same kind of course in Kenya. And that's where I met my current boss. So that was a very interesting way of us meeting. So in terms of wildlife conservation in Kenya, we are working to transform mindsets and change public attitudes towards wildlife, because when you work in a country where half the population is living below the poverty line, it can be a challenge sometimes to be able to see, do I worry about putting food on the table, or do I worry about taking care of animals? So those can be a challenge, and especially in a community where conservation has been seen as more with the foreign people and tourists. And anything that is about tourism is believed to be very expensive, and only foreigners can afford, and not people who are living within the country. So for me, coming into an organization to try and work with the team to see how we could change mindsets and see how we could influence and work with people to see the importance of why these wildlife are part of us. Without them, we would not be where we are. So if they disappear, then it means that we will not last as well.
So
we
Trish,
need our planet.
So you brought up a very interesting question. A country where 50% of the people live below the poverty line. Yes. And obviously, if it's a question of saving animals or feeding my kids, most of us will say, I'm going to feed my kids. Yeah. So how do you do that? Can you give us an example or a story of how you create that change in people's mindsets so that they want to be engaged in saving animals?
So one of the ways that we at Wildlife Direct have been working towards changing people's hearts, minds, and also the laws of the country has been through the programs that you had mentioned earlier when you introduced me, and that is through a legal program. So we have a legal program that we are the only organization currently in Kenya that has employed lawyers to watch brief in all Kenyan courts on wildlife crime cases. So we have lawyers assigned to follow up, monitor wildlife crime cases, and see how the government, the courts, and the country is perceiving these cases. Are these cases being seen through to the end, or are they falling through the wayside? are the penalties too lenient, or are they actually to the book? And is there a deterrent, or what are the gaps? So once we do this watching brief, which we do through a project we call Eyes in the Courtroom, we ensure that we work with the law, the legislative teams in the country, the Kenya Police, the Office of the Deputy, the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, and every other person who is involved. These are agencies like the Kenya Wildlife Service. And we work with them and bring out challenges that we see, and we identify gaps that we can train and empower the people who are handling evidence. But we are also running a campaign called Hands Off Our Elephant campaign, which Wildlife Direct started running in 2013. And we have been privileged to have the First Lady of Kenya as the patron of the campaign. And through this, we have been able to create such a big awareness of the importance of saving our elephants and the importance of wildlife. And when we see that even the top leadership is paying attention and stating that this is important, then other citizens are able to start stopping and looking at it and seeing that, wow, if our government is taking a serious step into seeing how important wildlife is, then we also need to be able to own our own heritage and be proud of it, because wildlife brings a lot of development and benefit to our own country. And so with that, we've decided that because of the lack of awareness on the importance of wildlife, we are going to bring wildlife into the living rooms of Kenyans. And how we are doing this is through a television program. And through this program, we are showing award-winning documentaries that have been shot here in Kenya, but have never been seen by Kenyans. These are award-winning films, but Kenyans do not know about them. These are about the big cats that are being shown by the BBC and other films that have been shot in Kenya in different national parks and reserves. But Kenyans do not even know how their own parks look like. So when we have these films that are shot here and are sold out there, and only people who have cable TV are able to afford to see them, we decided to partner with a local national television channel to be able to bring these television documentaries by engaging the filmmakers, the producers, people like Nat Geo, people like BBC, and telling them that, hey, you shot these programs and films in Kenya, but Kenyans don't even know about them. We need you in return to give us these films, to air them for free on a free-to-air channel, so that majority of Kenyans can start appreciating wildlife. Because if they don't see this, you don't appreciate what you don't know. So the only experience that most Kenyans have with wildlife is when the wildlife has escaped from the parks and is wreaking havoc in their farms. When they see wildlife is when it has killed someone from the community. So the kind of relationship that they have with wildlife is that of conflict. So the human-wildlife conflict become a big issue. So we bring these amazing shows to show them that there's beauty in wildlife. There's amazing stories and how this wildlife can be able to not only benefit the people who work with them, but the country as a whole. The kind of pride that these wildlife bring to our own country. Kenya is known
Trish,
for
I can see how your background in communications is so relevant here in this situation, and how you're applying that. Can I ask you, can I switch to sort of a little bit of a more personal track and ask you, how did you make that kind of decision? What was it about, your background as a young person that made you decide to go and, and major in communications in college?
So from a young age, I always remember my mother telling me that I have answers to everything. Like, I was very tiny. As a child, I grew up a very tiny young girl, and I was the smallest in my class. I started school very early, 2 years earlier than most of my peers. So I was the
Wow.
youngest in the class. And I always found myself having to speak and have answers to everything. So it was my way of survival. I just became a
Wow.
communicator. I remember when I was going to high school, my mother kept telling me, "Oh, please watch your mouth." And I said, "This mouth is going to do amazing things." And, and so I knew from a very young age that I wanted to be a communicator. And one of the things that I wanted to do was use the pen. As a journalist, when I started after high school, I went and did my diploma in mass communication at the Kenya Institute of Mass Communication. And I wanted to use the pen to share with people information that would help them make the right decisions. And this was because I had seen so many young girls falling off the wayside because they got the wrong kind of information or they were not aware. And because of this, I wanted to do work that would create awareness, that would empower people and communities to be able to have more information in their fingertips when they are making decisions about their own lives. And so that spilled into even personal. So I looked at it that if I have knowledge, I would be able to work or engage with someone to be able to make a decision, not just in their work life, but also in their personal life. So if I am able to empower people to move forward in the right direction because of knowledge, skills that I've shared with them, be it through an inspiring story about a community project I'm working on, or be it about sharing a story about what's happening with young people, then I would have made a difference. And so that's how I always knew from the get-go that I wanted to be in communications. So after I did my mass communication, I decided to go for further studies and did my Bachelor's of Arts in communication and sociology. The reason why I majored in both these two was because one of the things that I wanted to do was understand sociology is about socialization, how people behave and why they behave the way they behave. I believe that if you want to make a difference, you need to listen. Before you even offer any solution, you need to listen to people. And you cannot listen to someone unless you're able to truly, generously understand where they're coming from. Because otherwise, at the end of the day, you're only listening to respond. You're waiting for a question, and before you understand it, you have an answer for it. So I started growing back from my own experiences of being in high school and having an answer for everything to understanding why is someone behaving the way they do. And because we are so different, we can't be in one room and listen to someone speak, but each and every one of us leave that room with something different. The way we
Yeah,
hear is so different.
I
So
really see the trend, and you being the oldest person, but you're being very small and having to communicate and being a leader. And this gets me to another question, but I see that Ofu has joined us. Ofu, welcome. Good to see you. So Trish, I want to ask you, we've just got a few minutes left for this interview part, and then we're going to go to the circle. So can you tell us a little bit about what led you to found Mimi Need Change? And particularly, why such an emphasis on tribalism? For those of us who are not familiar with Kenya, why is overcoming tribalism such a big deal over there?
So Mimi Ni Change is Mimi is the Swahili word for I. So Mimi Ni Change is I am change. I am the change. And what it came from was I was inspired by the leadership that I admired from people like Mahatma Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, the kind of selfless leadership that is about the people. And I looked at my own background and the kind of work I was doing as a communications person, as a communications strategist for many organizations. I learned a lot along the way. And I had the honor and privilege to travel to different places. And I have to tell Steve that I've been to Half Moon Bay. It's very beautiful.
You
And
have.
I have also, have also lived in San Francisco for a while. So I feel at home. I feel like San Francisco is my second home. But while I was doing my fellowship and living in San Francisco in 2015, I had the opportunity to go to the Nexus Global Summit, which was held in New York. And it was a gathering bringing young people from all over the world. We had people coming from over 70 countries. And I was inspired by the amazing work that young people were doing. And in that gathering, it just hit me that my passion for empowering young people to be the change they wish to see was something that I was doing in so many ways, but I'd never given it a name. And it just hits me that the gatherings I have, for example, the way I work with young people is I would be invited to go and speak to a football team. So the football team would be of young boys who are teenagers. And I would speak about making responsible choices, about the importance of working hard in school, the importance of being responsible in your own life, and also HIV prevention, which is a big thing in Africa. HIV/AIDS has really taken so many lives in sub-Saharan Africa. So everything that I used to learn from my own work, I would translate it into tailor-made skill that I would share with communities who were otherwise not in our projects. So if it was a HIV prevention program, I would take what I learned and what I was doing at work and learn with young people and share with those people who might not have come across our programs within my organization. And so I found myself engaging with a group of young girls, young boys, and just youth in general. And as a young person myself, I was also in the path for learning. So as I was empowering and creating this space for young people, I was also learning and growing myself. So it was more of a two-way street where I learned and shared with the young people that I've engaged with. And so during this gathering in New York, I just had this light bulb that I want to do Mimini Change, which is work with young people to be the change we wish to see. In Kenya, we have grown up being told you're the leaders of tomorrow. But I wanted us to be leaders in being leaders. It's not waiting for that one day to come, but living that you wish to see tomorrow today. So if I want to end tribalism, where does it start? I have to live and treat people without letting tribalism influence how I interact and relate with them. And so I thought this would be a good opportunity to use the leadership skills that I had gained through a lot of programs that I had been in, and work with young people to truly look at ourselves and find out, why is this issue of tribalism continuing to influence and run our lives? And the only way...
How does tribalism distort people's lives? Can you give us a more concrete idea? So what? So tribalism.
So in Kenya, tribalism, we come from a community where we have over 42 tribes. And all these tribes are, everybody comes from a tribe where you feel your tribe is your identity. Our namings are, whether you're a Christian, you always have your tribal name. And your second name will tell someone which tribe you come from. So since time immemorial, our country has always been divided along tribal lines. And this is in terms of leadership. When we elect people into leadership positions, we don't look at them in terms of merit and development qualifications that they can bring on board, but we look at them in terms of which tribe are you coming from. So because of that, we have grown in a place where you grow up, you're told, don't play with children from this tribe, or don't relate with someone from that tribe, don't get married to this person, or this tribe is like this and that tribe is like that. So there are stereotypes about each tribe. Some of them are funny, some of them are not funny. But the thing is that these stereotypes have made us accept that when you see someone from a different tribe, you're waiting to see, when you see a behavior that is in relation to the stereotype of that tribe, then you're like, oh, you see, he's doing that or she's doing that because she's from this tribe. So it's more like you're just waiting to confirm certain characteristics in people. And when you start a conversation with someone, in Kenya, the first thing you ask is their name. And when I say I am Trish, the immediate answer any Kenyan will follow up that with, the immediate question is, Trish who? The reason why they want to know your second name when they get to meet you is to know which tribe you belong to, and then they can now start relating with you based on your tribe. There are things they might not tell you if they didn't know your tribe, but once they know which tribe you come from, then they know how to relate with you. And so we relate with each and every person every day on a tribal basis. So everybody's put in a tribal box, and in this tribal box, anything you do is because of your tribe. When you elect a leader, you come from a huge, and so you see, like when you come, so the popular or the big tribes will always have public or leadership positions because people vote along tribal lines. It
so
doesn't
Trish,
matter.
you know, when you and I were talking, I was reflecting on how we can relate to that in the United States today. You know, the tribal, we have the Democratic tribe and the Republican tribe, and very, very similar behaviors in a different social context. So I have two more questions I want to ask you, and then it's your turn to ask us a question, okay? So one question is, you know, you've been working with young people from different tribes to sort of learn how to overcome these stereotypes and talk to each other. What can you share with us that works? What can we learn from your experience? What do you do that works?
So for us, one of the things that I have learned is that you have to start from a space of being honest. And being honest means that all the challenges that we face, all the troubles in this world, for example, in tribalism, the way we engage with young people is that we ask the question of, where are we? How did we get there? And until we are very honest in answering this question, we cannot move forward. And with tribalism, each and every one of us here in Kenya have either contributed to ensuring that the status quo is there. The problem is that we, a lot of times as human beings, we like pointing fingers. And in Kenya, for tribalism, we point fingers at our leaders. So it is our leaders who we feel are tribal. But we forget that as individuals, we have been tribal ourselves. But none of us always say, I am a tribalist. We say our leaders are tribalists. But then we look at it. Have I ever judged someone based on their tribe? Have I made assumptions about someone based on their tribe? Every single time I ask for someone's second name, is it because I genuinely want to know their name, or is it because I want to know which tribe they come from? So
Sounds like you're getting back to that idea of be the change
yes,
you want to be in, see in the world.
exactly. So
Yeah.
every time we always say is when we point fingers, they are all pointing back at us. When we have problems and issues, we have to look at ourselves and ask ourselves truthfully, where have I contributed to the status quo? And once we know how we have, in one way or the other, the small things that we ignore build up into the big things. And that is what makes us be where we are. So the answer we cannot have just one silver bullet solution to the challenges we are facing. And in Kenya, one of the things that I say, in terms for us to live in a harmonious and peaceful community, one of the things that we have to learn to do is tolerance. And until we can tolerate people who we may not understand and also understand where they are coming from, it is going to be very hard to listen to them. It's going to be very hard to come into a solution. So at the end of the day, as young people, we are always looking at opportunities of how can we better ourselves, but bring everybody. And that's why Mimini Change is a platform for young people, regardless of their political affiliations, regardless of their economic status, regardless of their educational background, regardless of their religion or race. It does not matter whether you've gone to school or not. It does not matter whether you're rich or poor. The platform is for every young person who can bring in something. And once we leave all our judgments outside, then we can all come into a space where we can be honest about what we ourselves have contributed.
So I want to ask you my last question, which is, have the young people that you've involved in Mimini Change, have any of them taken the interest in your other interest in protecting Kenya's wildlife? Have you seen any of that happening?
Yes. One of the things I've had opportunities to speak with university students, and a lot of them have opened up and volunteered to work with Wildlife Direct. So we have a lot of young people who, once they know where I work and what I do, then they say, I would like to come and volunteer. Do you have volunteer opportunities? Especially young people who are in universities are now volunteering with our organization because we offer volunteer opportunities. And so they are able to come in and learn about wildlife conservation, have an opportunity to interact with wildlife, because the kind of work that we do, we organize events around international days. So such as the World Elephant Day, the Global March for Elephants, rhinos, lions, all these days about Cheetah Day, the Giraffe Day, we are able to create awareness. And during the global marches, we have over 1,000 young people coming in to march with us on the streets. Just like what was happening yesterday with marching for science, we have citizen science where we engage the little children, and these are young kids, to come with us into the national parks and learn about wildlife in the wild. So we have a project called Watoto Porini. And so every young person who gets to interact with us is invited to join us and throw a birthday party that is wildlife theme oriented and share with friends about wildlife, or come with us to the park, or sponsor a child if they can afford to take them to the park so that they can learn about wildlife. And the thing is that we're trying to just open up the minds of young people to see a lot of possibilities. The traditional assumption is that if you are in the wildlife industry, the only job opportunities that are there is to become a ranger. That's what children know. But we give them opportunities to go and see that they can become scientists. They can study the giraffes, they can study the elephants, they can be doctors in a lot of other ways that they had not thought about. Because in Kenya, the only doctor people know is the one in hospital. So to be a doctor, anytime a child says, I want to be a doctor, it's just to be a doctor in the medical field. So now when they come with us, and this is an opportunity that we open to young children from all backgrounds, rich and poor. So we work with schools from very affluent neighborhoods and also schools from the not so fortunate communities. And that is because we feel that it doesn't matter whether you're poor or rich, a child needs to have that experience to open their minds. And at that young age, when they start appreciating wildlife at that young age, then it is very easy for them to continue doing that into their adulthood. It
Beautiful.
is harder.
And that's a beautiful spot for us to transition, I think.